thank you for coming. This is you, huh?
Yeah.
It's cool. It's a nice way to start your portfolio. It makes it a little more personal.
Okay.
So, and if I speak quickly, I'm sorry, but Liz can translate. Yes, please. So I like how you present yourself. It's a nice way to do it.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the fact that as I was looking through this, you did a various range of samples. Some Marvel, some not Marvel, so a lot of different work.
Yeah.
Apprezzo il fatto che hai utilizzato diversi stili, diverse cose, Marvel o non Marvel, insomma.
So I'm going to flip through, but why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay.
Art school, what's your history as an artist, and who are some of your artistic influences?
Okay. Io ho fatto liceo artistico a Treviso, poi ho fatto un paio d'anni di accademia di belle arti a Venezia.
Okay, so I did an art high school, then I went to university, fine art.
Poi adesso ho finito l'anno scorso 3 anni di corso di scuola di fumetto.
Okay, and last year he finished his comic class.
Okay.
Alla scuola internazionale.
No, a Venezia Comics c'è anche Marco Checchetto che insegna lì.
At Venezia Comics, and one of his teachers was Checchetto.
Oh, Checchetto, yeah, he's a fantastic artist.
Yeah.
He's working for us now.
E adesso vediamo che frutti porta questo studiare.
I was looking forward to what this education can bring to him.
Okay. Okay.
Le tue influenze artistiche, tipo quali preferisci?
A livello di fumettisti?
Sì, in generale, comunque sì, parliamo del
Beh, a me piace molto, mi sono innamorato di Frazetta, Frank Frazetta.
Okay. Yeah. One of the masters.
A big master. Poi Dean Adams, mi piaceva molto, Jack Kirby, Alex Toth, Joe Quesada.
Okay, my boss. No, it's really nicely done. And so one of the questions I always ask people too is that, in Italy, people tend to kind of pencil and ink themselves. So some of these pages you've penciled and inked. But with the Marvel pages, you've just penciled them. So which do you prefer? Do you prefer pencil and ink, or would you be willing to do just penciling?
Non ho preferenze riguardo a inchiostare o disegnare solo a matita.
Ok, no, he has no preferences. Mi piace entrambi.
Sì.
He likes them both, so we can do pencil only, and it's no problem to ink.
Okay. And how about with the color page? There's a color page here.
Yes.
Did you paint that?
Yeah, watercolor.
Watercolor. Okay. No, wonderful. So I'm going to go through, and I'm going to make a few comments. And like I always tell people that my criticism is meant to be constructive. I'm here to help you get better, because it's in my best interest to make sure that you become a better artist, so you can come work for Marvel eventually.
I hope so.
Okay. No. I'm going to talk mostly about the Marvel pages, but for now, I like the story here, and your sense of color, the way that you do it, not just the specific little details, but your overall approach to the page, to the actual, kind of feel that you give the entire piece is wonderful, I think.
Apprezzo molto
Come trattato in generale.
Esatto, esattamente, non solo il singolo dettaglio, ma proprio l'atmosfera e l'approccio che hai alla mente, al tavolo, anche nella sua interezza.
Because sometimes, it's important to be a good painter with the details, but if you don't have a sense of the entire page, because when a reader opens a comic, the first thing they have, their eye doesn't focus just on the panel, they take it in a general sweep of the whole page before they focus, and what you do here is really wonderful that way.
In sostanza è vero che bisogna essere bravi e accurati nei dettagli, ma non bisogna perdere la visione d'insieme, perché il lettore, una volta che apre il fumetto, per prima cosa ha una visione d'insieme della pagina e chiaramente deriva un'impressione da questa cosa. E quindi è importante mantenere anche un senso di insieme che sia accurato, insomma.
Okay. Do you know the writer Brian Michael Bendis?
Yes.
Sì, uno sceneggiatore.
Looks like him. I was like, wait, it looks just like Bendis. So, and so let's go to the, before actually, one of the things here, I like the whole page here. It's really nicely done, with a little bit of like, Franklin Booth thrown in up there. But one of the problems that people have when they draw the Hulk is that the Hulk's a man, it's Bruce Banner, who becomes the monster, but he's supposed to keep the same anatomy, which is larger. And so many people draw him over-exaggerated with huge muscles and unbelievable anatomy that it doesn't come off well. But the best Hulk artists draw him just as a man with a larger physical presence, and you capture that very nicely. You don't over-exaggerate anything. The actual anatomy that you give the Hulk here is spot on.
Sì, fatto un bel complimento perché dice che questa pagina innanzitutto gli piace la sua ricchezza, la sua completezza, ma il punto di forza è che solitamente chi disegna Hulk tende a esagerare le proporzioni del muscolo, quando in realtà Bruce Banner è un uomo che si ingigantisce, diventa mostruoso, ma mantiene un'anatomia e delle proporzioni che devono essere comunque reali e di una persona reale. Tu in questo caso hai fatto un buon lavoro perché, nonostante sia naturalmente il personaggio quello che è, però mantiene delle proporzioni umane, un'anatomia che è credibile.
Grazie.
Non è esagerato in sostanza.
Per fare questo mi sono ispirato magari al film dove il personaggio rispecchia più la morfologia dell'uomo muscoloso più che del mostro super sviluppato.
In fact, it says that for the previous page, he was inspired by the movie where the Hulk literally maintained more human proportions and maybe with respect to comics where it's often exaggerated.
Yeah.
In the movie, you notice this, that it was quite more realistic.
Oh, great. It's a great job. It's a great influence to have on a piece like that. The other thing I like about your portfolio is that you're giving equal time to men and women. So many people just like to focus on Wolverine or Spider-Man or the male characters to bring that superhero aspect to portfolios I review, but you're doing it very nicely that you're capturing the men and the male and the female characters, Jean Grey.
Dai uguale comunque spazio proporzionato tra uomini e donne. Di solito infatti chi porta un portfolio prevalentemente dedicato ai supereroi si concentra sulle figure maschili, fondamentalmente.
Sì, beh, è più facile.
Più facile
Per un maschio disegnare un maschio.
Un maschio o comunque anche una generazione magari si stende a privilegiare anche un personaggio maschile, e invece tu hai dato molto spazio anche ai personaggi femminili.
So, as I look at your Marvel pieces here, the first ones, the Hulk is done very nicely, Jean Grey's great, and I really like Daredevil. You're doing the defining characteristic of his Billy Club. But, it's time for some bad. Not bad, but when I look at the Thor piece, it's not your strongest piece, I feel. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is the perspective you're taking, kind of the we call the worm's eye view, from looking down, looking up, is a hard angle to pull off to begin with. The perspective is very precise about the human body. And I think the lower body up through the chest to the face is fine, but when you're going above, I think the perspective on the arm is a little bit off. It looks foreshortened. Definitely the underarm, is done, but then the wrist and everything, it's much too short, because if you fold your arm like that, they're almost proportionate in size. But here, you make the underarm so much bigger and so much smaller. Even given you have to do that for the perspective, but you do it too much. You foreshorten everything a little too much.
C'è un grosso problema dai piedi fin verso le spalle, è abbastanza corretto, abbastanza proporzionato. Il problema che ti è evidenziato nel braccio, che in effetti è sproporzionata la lunghezza di questa parte
del braccio con l'avambraccio.
La parte dell'avambraccio fino al polso. In effetti capisce che l'hai fatto perché c'è una prospettiva che hai cercato di seguire, però probabilmente
l'effetto non è riuscito.
Non è del tutto corretto.
Now, the other thing is when drawing superheroes, especially with pin-up, is that you have to focus on what's the most important aspect of the character. So with Wolverine, it's the claws and the hair. With Batman, it's the mask and the cape and the symbol. And you've done it well here. With Daredevil, it's the Billy Club. With Hulk, it's the perspective. But with Thor is about one thing, it's the hammer. Okay, and what you're doing here is you're covering the hammer with the helmet. So whenever you see people draw covers of Thor, it's always the hammer is front and center. You know, they're holding the hammer out or they're holding the hammer up. So what I would recommend to you is you should maybe put the arm a little bit farther out, so the hammer is more, it's one of the bigger parts of the shot. And then what you're going to go down here and do with the lightning will really, exaggerate and emphasize, play off the hammer very nicely. So I think if you wanted to ever go back and redo this piece, we're not just on the perspective, but also making the hammer a bigger part of the shot.
Sì, perché devi chiedere di mettere in evidenza, come hai fatto negli altri, quella
caratteristica
del personaggio. Nel caso di Thor il martello, il è nascosto dietro la testa, per cui se avesse di lavorare a questa tavola, oltre ad avere la prospettiva, sposta il martello, sceglie una posa, comunque portalo un po' più in alto, più evidente, poi utilizzando anche il fulmine per evidenziarlo al massimo, perché di solito è quello che deve emergere insieme al personaggio in maniera molto evidente, è la sua caratteristica fondamentale, il suo attributo principale, che è il martello.
Okay, thank you. No worries. And now the script, the Wolverine pages, I know the script very well, I've seen them, but I think your take is one of the most interesting takes. And you do something very well, and not even very well, you do something that should be natural for most storytellers, but they don't, is when you're doing the breakdowns of the pencils like this, you're leaving room for the balloons. You're taking the dialogue into place and you're making them part of the story in the layout, which is extremely important because there's so many artists who just don't think that way. They're only focusing on the actual what's happening in the page, that they draw without thinking of where the balloons are going to go. And then their artwork gets covered up and they get mad, but it's just as integral a part of the artwork as the artwork itself.
Ti ho fatto un altro complimento molto rilevante, che ti sei ricordato di lasciare lo spazio per i balloni, per i testi in sostanza, che è una cosa che molti tendono a trascurare e quindi poi è una cosa molto difficoltosa da inserire in un secondo tempo perché va a coprire l'illustrazione eccetera. Invece poi ti sei ricordato di lasciare degli spazi dedicati a questo, quindi
di prevedere
un merito.
Sì, la scuola di fumetto ha insistito su questa cosa di pensare in anticipo dove avevano tutti i balloni, dove avevano tutte le didascalie.
It says that the comic school, they really focused on this important aspect.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hear that because I wish more American schools would focus on the same thing, because I work with so many artists who don't think about where to put the balloons. It's crazy.
They don't think about it, it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Si dice che vorrebbe che in tante scuole americane anche questo mi sia spiegato meglio, perché davvero gli capita regolarmente di vedere delle tavole dove è evidente che non si è pensato ai testi, le didascalie che sarebbero a finire.
Now, I like the way you're handling your storytelling. Just my two comments would be, not so much on this page. I think this page is nice. It's a nice introduction of the character. But the thing is, we don't know who the character is yet. It's part of the mystery of the story, I know. So, the guy rides in on the bike, we get a close-up on his face, and the dialogue kind of will give you a hint of who it is. But then here you have you have basically three big panels. So these are the three biggest panels of the page. So, guy on the snowmobile riding through, a shot of the map where he's going, him getting off the bike. So from a storytelling perspective, this is great. But then here, it's the final reveal, we said, it's the page where you think that it's Wolverine, or know that it's Wolverine, and it's the smallest panel on the page. So, I know kind of what the script says and how you're supposed to introduce it, but what I would have done is maybe, there's a lot of blank space here, is maybe reduce the size of the panels a little bit and make the reveal of Wolverine kind of the bigger part of the page, so when he comes out, it's like, oh shit. And he takes off his mask and, it's Wolverine, alright, I get it.
Ok, ho capito.
Sì, in realtà questa pagina introduttiva è fatta molto bene, perché vedi un personaggio che non sa ancora chi essere, e quindi lo vede avvicinarsi a un close-up del suo volto,
ancora rimane
misterioso. Mentre qui in questa tavola, che funziona da un punto di vista di narrazione, perché vedi un'inquadratura più da lontano, poi un dettaglio della mappa dove sta andando, lui che scende dalla motoslitta, ma il problema è che poi quando c'è il momento della rivelazione del personaggio, il momento di svelamento, in realtà è la vignetta più piccola rispetto alle altre tre, quindi ti suggerisce ad esempio qua dove c'è molto bianco, ridurre la dimensione, esatto, e dare assolutamente rilievo, sottorilievo proprio alla vignetta conclusiva, insomma, dove si ha veramente del personaggio.
So and then here, I mean, I think it's a great, the way you laid it out is perfect. The storytelling works well. You're moving the character wonderfully from, panel to panel and page to page. And, you're following the kind of, the way the eye should move, moves perfectly. I'm moving this way, this way, this way, and it's really nice storytelling.
Thank you.
Sì.
And then, it's the reveal that you have here too, right? I think the two missteps that you might be making here are when you go to final pencil and ink, and it's hard to tell just in the pencil, but I think you'd be able to pull it off because on later pages like this, or even this page, you have very clear panel borders, separating the action because it's just part of the beats. But on some of these pages, there's no panel borders, you're just doing black lines. So when you go to ink, it might be, we might lose a little, the panels might bleed into each other by just having a black line. So one of the things I'd recommend is maybe if you go back and complete pages like this, is just always think about the panel border to make sure that it's not going to bleed into each other. Because like right here, for example, my eye is carrying me just down, I'm looking at Wolverine and I'm carrying the gray, and it's following me right down, excuse me, right down here. The level of black is going to take me through this page, and I'm not going this way.
Quindi sì, l'unica professione che ha è rispetto poi alla fase in cui va a incastrare, perché vede che non è lasciato molto burro tra una vignetta e l'altra, dice che sono una scivolano dentro l'altra in un certo senso. Quello che ti suggerisce è, per rendere il tutto più comprensibile, di ricordare di lasciare magari un bordino tra una vignetta e l'altra, un bordo bianco per esempio.
Here's a good example too. You're following the artwork down. It looks like that's because of the angle. It's almost exactly the same shape. So your eye is going to go right like that.
E quindi anche una volta che è inchiostrato, anche a livello di zone di nero, tra virgolette, poi si possono creare delle sorte di direzioni di lettura sbagliate, tipo qui, così
sì,
guardando
invece
c'è una zona di nero che ti porta ad andare sotto, la lettura invece che è di là. Quindi fare attenzione innanzitutto appunto a queste zone cromatiche, ma anche separare le miniature dall'altro con un bordo, mentre qua sono tutte una sopra l'altra, non c'è sostanzialmente distacco, se non questo bordo nero che però una volta che la tavola è inchiostata si mangia, viene mangiato in un certo senso.
What the borders do in comics, and a lot of people forget this, it's not just to close the artwork, but it's also for timing. Like in film, you control the timing for the film and the scenes based on the other. Yeah, exactly, the rhythm. And what the borders do here is it provides a rhythm. It's action, pause, action. Even if it's a split second, your eye doesn't notice, but your brain registers it. It's a split second and you're going through. And for here, it's just kind of bleeding all together. You don't know where the beats are, but here it's very clear that, okay, you know exactly where it is. So it just really helps the rhythm. That's a great word to use, the rhythm of the storytelling.
Okay.
No, I think it's great. I love how you handle the character. The actual drawings of Wolverine in costume are wonderful. The way that your physical use of his body language is exactly how Wolverine should act. You give him the right size too, the right proportion. He's a smaller guy. They always joke about that. And the way you give him the perspective of his muscles and the way that you're using his claws, it's a perfect reflection of the character.
Si dice che ha un uso, una padronanza della posa del corpo, della naturalezza, del movimento, della posa, del tutto realistico, perché soltanto si scherza sempre sul fatto che è molto basso fondamentalmente, però riesce a mantenere una perfetta equilibrio e precisione nell'anatomia, nel disegno degli artigli, nella posa, nelle proporzioni tra i muscoli.
Okay, thank you.
The one thing that's missing, and this is just me, this is personal, I know the script might not have it in there, but when Wolverine pops his claws, it's, snipped. He always has the moment where he pops his claws. But here, he's checking out the can, and then the guy comes back, and then all of a sudden, boom, his claws are out. So, as an artist, again, even if it's not in the script, it's kind of, comics are a collaboration between the writer and the artist. And if the writer misses something and the artist thinks it's better to add it, you should take the liberty to do that in communication with your editor and the writer. And I think what would have been cool in a scene like this is just, Wolverine sees a thing, the guy comes out all of a sudden, and then you have even if it's a shot of the claw, snipped, you know, a little inset panel here or something, or you know he pops the claws, it's like, oh shit, here comes Wolverine, man, we're getting badass now.
Dice di non dimenticare una cosa e di essere a volte anche, se vuoi, critico, tra virgolette, nei confronti di una sceneggiatura che ricevi, perché una sceneggiatura si può anche dimenticare di evidenziare un dettaglio o di inserire qualcosa nella sceneggiatura. In questo caso si riferisce al momento in cui Wolverine tira fuori gli artigli, che non è particolarmente evidenziato nella tua pagina, può essere forse perché non era scritto nella sceneggiatura, forse, o per una scelta tua. Ad ogni modo, a suo parere, avresti potuto inserire anche una vignetta piccolissima, un dettaglio proprio della mano
dello scatto,
dello sting famoso, perché è un momento rivelatore dell'azione che sta a venire, quindi è un momento drammatico per eccellenza, diciamo, nella storia.
Okay. And now, you know, running short on time, I'm sorry, I've got to see more people, but I really like your inking style here too. What did you, I mean, you did that in wash with the brush?
Come inchiostrato? Con a pennello?
Sì, with the brush.
Okay, great. This is just fantastic. And this is older though, right? How old is this?
Quando l'hai fatto?
Quanto tempo fa?
Quanto tempo fa l'hai fatto?
Maybe 3 years.
3 years old, yeah. It's an interesting style, and I can see here in the new stuff that you've grown as an artist. But there's something here that I really love. You add a great atmosphere to the overall pages and to the scene with just your use of gray and the way that you're playing with the tone over the course of the story.
Sì, piace moltissimo anche questo tuo stile, per quanto non sia Marvel, però ha un senso dell'insieme, dell'ambiente, dell'utilizzo dei toni di grigio e di nero che mi piace moltissimo.
So do you have JPEGs? Not here, but of everything else? Okay, so what I'd like you to do is, especially the Wolverine stuff, is, you know, I'd like to get the JPEGs because I'd like to show them around and get some other opinions from some of the editors for your work.
Sì, potrei dimostrare anche ad altri editor per avere anche le loro impressioni, se hai dei JPEG di queste pagine di Wolverine.
Yeah, this is great. I just love the sense of design, this perspective you give everything. And you know, I'd like to see I'd like to show it to the editors, and maybe there's another test or a sample script that they have that they'd like to see you do something with. So.
Sì, così magari ti possono inviare un'altra sceneggiatura di prova di alcune pagine per fare appunto qualche prova in più.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Cool. Well, let me give you my card.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm leaving Mantova tomorrow, and then I'll be back in New York on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, we need a couple days to relax and with my wife and my cats and everything. So yeah, maybe next weekend if you drop me an email with some of the stuff, and you know, we can start the dialogue and see what we have. Okay, but again, I think I see definite growth in your work as you go on from elders to newer. So just the next step, we have to figure out what it's going to be. Okay? Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. It's a pleasure to meet you. Good luck and enjoy the rest of the show. And we'll talk later next week. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.